Hello and welcome back. We are here with the Bernina 790 Pro. As promised, we got it all unboxed and we've started playing with it. It just arrived earlier this week. And we are ready for our first demo with you of some of the new features here on the 790 Pro. We are going to be starting with the sewing features, just a few of the big new things, that pinpoint laser, for instance. And we'll be doing some setup so that later we can hand off to do some embroidery with some of the new embroidery features as well. So right now we're going to start by threading the machine and doing some applique with our pinpoint laser. Okay, so we're going to thread the machine starting up here. I've got a white polyester thread on just because it's nice and shiny, and we'll be doing some decorative work. We always start by going behind a lever in the back and then straight down along the right hand side. You'll notice I've still got a hand on the thread back toward the spool to give myself enough resistance to really make sure I'm in that tension disc. I come around that bottom and now I start looking for my take-up lever. And these don't pop up to a visible point above the machine, rather they're visible more from a forward position. And so once I've got it visible to me, I take the thread in from the right, out from the left, and that pops it into that take-up lever. Then we're going to come straight down, and we've got two guides. We've got one guide right at the base of that slot, and then one guide right above the needle, which looks like a paper clip. Now that we're into our two guides, we're at the point where the 790 Pro diverges from the 790 Plus or the 770 QE or any other machine that's not the 880. We actually have our fully automatic needle threader. So we're going to go over to a little slot over here. It's two white pieces of plastic with a slot in between. And I traveled to the back through that slot, and then I cut off using the cutter on the side. And then I'm going to press my needle threader button up here on the body of the machine. And there we go. It's all threaded. All right, free that tail up. It gets just a little snagged. And then I already have a white bobbin in here, but I'll just pop that out and show you guys. We've got our jumbo bobbin. That's been standard with the 7 series for a long time. But hey, if you're the uninitiated, these bobbins are 70% bigger than other brands' bobbins, and it feels like they never run out. So we'll just pop that back in our bobbin case and put our bobbin case back in. This is the classic bobbin case system that have been on machines since the 70s. Very familiar. Very easy to approach this machine because it's just a slightly fancier, bigger version of, the classic 830 records that Bernina was producing back in the 70s. Okay, so at this point, we are going to start prepping for our little quilt along that we're going to do. We're going to be making a very simple embellished tote bag. And in fact, you can do this with a tote bag that you have that is already made, and we're just going to embellish it, and that's actually what I have here. So we'll look over at our workspace, and you can see I do indeed have a pre-made tote bag. It's already put together even with side seams, and I'm not even going to bother to rip those side seams out. I'm just going to cut them off because it doesn't bother me if this tote bag gets a little smaller. Okay, and then this tote bag happened to have no bottom seam, so it's actually all one piece. We could cut this apart if we felt like it. It's not a big deal. I think just for simplicity's sake, we'll keep it all together, and we will be working on both halves eventually. But today, we together will be working just on this side here. Okay, now what else do I have? I also have a piece of fabric that's been cut into a parallelogram shape. So wider at the bottom, narrower at the top. This is going to be a purse shape. This is probably the most simple purse shape we could have designed. And I've also got a little handle piece. And the handle is made of faux leather so that I don't need to worry about finishing those edges. And in fact, I'm not even going to tack it down. I'm going to let it free float as a little fun element. Now, I've also taken the top edge of my purse piece and I've folded it over by about 1/2 inch in order to create a clean top edge, because I've decided that I want this to be a pocket as well. Now, if you wanted to, add a lining or something to this, you could. I'm just going to have the back of the fabric be the inside of the pocket, and that's good enough for me. So the first thing that we're going to do is just top stitch that fold so that I get that nice clean edge on the top, which is not going to get appliqued down. So we want to make sure it's nice and clean. I've got my 20C foot on the machine, and I've got my 9mm plate, which is the wide plate that lets me do a zigzag. All right. Now, the laser's not necessarily designed for use with just a straight stitch. It's maybe not the most useful with the straight stitch, but we're going to turn it on now, and then we'll see really where it becomes useful when we go to do our applique. The laser's turned on using a new icon located at the bottom of this black bar. And when I press it and it turns yellow, I will then have a bright red laser pointing down right where my needle is going to enter. Okay. We're just going to do a quick edge stitch here. And I am hearing it sounds really smooth. I'm kind of liking this new sound to it. Feels really smooth and powerful. It's got kind of a new sound. I do know that that's part of what they were re-engineering with the stitch precision. Like I said, this is my first time sewing on it. So far it feels pretty good. So we've got our top stitching done, and now we're ready to applique it onto our fabric. And so I've got my tote bag. I did the world's easiest center mark by simply folding it in half and doing a little finger press to show me where the center of my tote bag was. Now I'm going to do the same with the fabric. Center. Center. Boom. Got a little crosshairs. We're going to match them up. Ready to go. All right. The last little element we're going to add is the handle, which is that faux leather. And just so I don't forget to do it later, I'm going to tuck it under those edges there. Just bring it up a little. There we go. And like I said, that's going to remain free floating. Okay. Now I do have a little bit of fusible web on the edges here, which is for applique. So Steam a Seam, Wonder Under, Heat and Bond, those are all brand names for fusible web. But if you go to your local quilt store and say fusible web, they should know what you mean. And so now we're ready to actually do our applique stitch. Our applique stitches on a Bernina are inside of this little picture of a quilt. And so we're going to go down to that. And we've got several choices, including reflected options. I've got my single, my triple, and then 2 reflected versions, and then some other heirloom stitches in here as well. I'm going to do the triple stitched applique stitch because it's going to make it show up a little bit more, and I think we're going to be very proud of it, so we want it to show. Okay. So right now, laser's off. I'm going to go ahead and turn my laser on. And this is the really cool part of using the laser, is it anticipates where the needle is going to go. I personally am going to have an easier time of lining this up if I scooch my applique stitch over. I'm going to scooch it over all the way so that it's right along the edge of the foot. And now, okay, we're ready to go. And what we're going to see is that the laser is going to anticipate by about half a second where the needle is going to go. Lock stitch first. There we go. And we saw our first jump. That laser pops over to the left-hand position about a half a second before I get there. Now, on this particular stitch, I like that because I might forget that I'm doing a triple stitch, and I might, if I'm on a curve, be going to curve already, and that hopping over is going to remind me that, hey, I'm not done triple stitching that sideways stitch. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move myself in front of the machine, and we're going to do some more applique, and you guys can just peek over my shoulder. So now that we're approaching the corner, this is also where that laser is going to come in handy, because it's going to be showing me where I'm going to hit that corner. And if I want to, I'll be able to make some slight adjustments to my length as I approach it if I think I'm going to maybe hit it at a weird point. Nope, looking good to me. Okay, as I go around the corner, I like to rotate so that my sideways step is always stepping inward at 90 degrees. And then here's the part where that laser is going to help. So if I'm stepping forward now, I don't want to take a big step. I'm going to try to take a little teeny step. Yes. All right, I've reached the edge, and I'm going to reset back to the beginning so that I start with a forward step, go back to where I was. And then while we're getting done with this, there's just a few more things I want to mention. If you are going through a heavier tote bag, like a heavy denim, one of the beautiful things about the 790 is it has that integrated walking foot, which is this dual feet system in back. I currently have a 20C foot on, which does not allow me to use it, but there is a 20D version, which has a slot to accommodate the dual feed. And there's other D feet. There's a 34D, which is clear, as well as like a 1/4 inch foot with the accommodation for the dual feed. And so if you are having trouble getting your fabric to move smoothly, you can go ahead and switch to a D foot and make sure to engage your dual feed. All right, so the last thing that I'm going to do is I had tucked in my little handle pieces, but I'm actually going to tack them down. I'm going to stitch a straight stitch right on top of the straight stitching I already did. That way this pocket will be wider at the bottom. You won't be able to slip anything in under the handles, but your phone will still fit and stuff will be able to spread out down there. Back to my straight stitch. Now, another beautiful thing about the Bernina is that it remembers your stitch quality. So if I had done a longer straight stitch before, when I switched to my applique stitch, it didn't forget that. It remembered it so that I didn't have to remember that myself. Now with the straight stitch, I earlier said, oh, I don't think we'll need the laser for the straight stitch. But you know what? Now that I'm doing some top stitching right over my own stitching, I'm actually really appreciating that laser as far as showing me you know, where that needle's going to land so that I can stay right on top of my top stitching. So I think I'm going to retract my previous statement. Okay, so here's what we've got so far. We've got our, just unfold that so we can see the rest of it. There we go. We've got our purse shape. It's been appliqued on, and we have top stitched in the little handle, and it is ready to be quilted. Okay, so what we've concluded so far is we have done our review of the pinpoint laser and using it for applique and top stitching. And from here, we're going to throw this project over to Wendell, who's going to do some embroidery with it. We have not gone over all of the new features on the sewing side of the 790 Pro, so that'll be coming up. But for now, since we've got our purse up and going, we're going to keep going with our purse on the embroidery side.
Hey everybody, thanks for stopping in. Mr. Wendell here. I'm going to show you some of the new features on our B790 Pro, which we're absolutely falling in love with. We're loving the black matte finish and all the neat features that it brings in both sewing and embroidery. So I guess Grace actually did this in the first video, and she was highlighting the applique that's super easy to do now with the laser pinpoint precision that you now have on this machine. So I'm going to attempt to quilt this. I have a little batting on the back, and I just need to spray a little bit of 505 on here. And we'll just place this in the hoop. You don't have to be precise because we can make it perfect with the machine. It doesn't matter how it's actually hooped in the hoop. This is a maxi hoop that I'm using. And so let's go ahead and get the machine threaded here. Has a fully automatic needle threader, which is awesome. They've brought this from the 880 to the 790. It's absolutely awesome. That's it. The needle is threaded. It's very positive. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to tell the machine that we're going to do embroidery, of course. And we're going to go into the design folder here. And I know from reading that the number 2 folder contains the BQM files. And those are files that are used generally on long arm machines to do automated quilting. So Bernina's brought them to this machine so that you can basically do any kind of quilting. Anything you can get in the hoop, you can quilt just like a long arm machine. So I'm going to select this folder. And there's 8 pages of, let me see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's tons of designs here. 8 pages of 10, so that's 80 designs. And they have square quilt patterns. They have borders. You can do combinations of them. I liked number 55. So we'll go to number 55 here. Let me see. Here we go, there's number 55. Another thing that they've done on the 790 that's really nice is they've actually labeled each design as BQM. So when you go in there, you're going to know immediately that this is a quilt design. So that's something they've brought. And I've noticed in some of the embroidery designs too, they've put EXP. So they're very easily identified. So I'm going to select number 55. That's my square. There's my quilt block. And I'm going to turn on the laser pinpoint right here, because that's going to help us position this perfectly. And I'm going to go, let me see, now I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to open this file here, which allows us to do the pinpoint placement. So with this new feature, you just have to have 4 points to mark, and that will quilt within that space that you've marked. So like on this design, obviously it's not a square. It's wonky, it's off. So this, in most cases, would be hard to quilt on a machine because it's not square. So we're just going to identify all 4 points here on this and tell the machine to go, and it's super easy. So I'll hit select this. The hoop's going to move into place. It's telling us to put our hoop on. we're going to attach the hoop. Let it go into position. And now it doesn't matter which one you pick first, but you're going to, again, identify the corner of each one of your blocks. And it doesn't matter where you start. I'll start in the upper left-hand corner. And so because we have the laser pointing here, all we need to do is just move the dials till we get to the exact corner where we want the quilting to start. Super easy. I did this the first time right out of the box, and it's just couldn't be easier. So now you don't have to do anything. Once you leave that position, it locks it in there. So we'll go to the second corner, which is here. And again, we'll move the laser to the second corner here. There we go. So we've basically identified our quilt square. So that you could use this on anything that literally that you could get in the hoop. As long as you can identify those 4 points, you're going to have perfect quilting. So now once those 4 positions have been placed, you have an option with this screen here to tell it how far of a margin you want from where the stitching is to the corner of your, or the edge of your block. So in this case, since Grace has done this blanket stitch here, I'm probably going to want to stay about 1/8 of an inch away from the applique stitch here so that it doesn't stitch into that. So it came up at 1/8. You can scroll through this. I believe it will go up to 1.5 inches. So you can get as far as 1.5 inches away from the edge of your design if you want to. But I'll leave it at 1/8. I think that's going to work. And so we'll hit the information button and tell the machine we want to stitch it out. And we're gonna see how this goes. This is going to open up a lot of possibilities to do a lot of quilting in the machine. Let me turn it up a little faster here. I can even turn on the rabbit. And this machine is amazingly quiet. And together with the SDT, the Smart Drive Technology module, and the new machine, I mean, it's absolutely the quietest machine, the quietest Bernina we've seen yet. So now it's doing the design here. There was another design in there that I noticed it was like a wreath, and then it had an opening in the middle. I thought about doing that. You could have done that, and then went back in here and put monogramming, possibly for your tote bag. Be another option for you. And also, one of the features of the machine now, when you're doing the BQM files, and you're doing in the hoop quilting, it automatically turns off the initial tie off, and it turns off the tie off at the end, so that you have the option to drop your needle and bring it back up and pull the threads up, so that later on you can pull them down and tie them off. So the machine is very smart as far as features go, and it knows exactly what you're doing and knows how to do the settings. You don't have to go into anything special. It does it automatically. And there's another feature, when this is done, I want to show you, that allows you to alter the stitch length on a quilt file, which is something I don't think most domestic machines allow you to do. I'll let it get done here. Perfect, it's all done there. So I wanted to show you this. One other feature of this is when you're doing your setup, you go into gears here, and you select the embroidery hoop, because these are the embroidery functions that you can control. You select this icon here, it's brand new. And what this is it's saying there's 9 stitches per inch in this design. Now, if you want it to be bigger or you want it to be smaller, I'd say based on the size and the dimension of your design, you can change this. You can either plus and minus it, or you can move it with your hand. And once you've set this, this is a function that's permanently set on the machine until you change it. So then you'll know that every time you do a quilt design, your stitches per inch is going to be, say, 12, or I think it was 9 is what was the default, but that, I guess, is 10. So that's another really cool option, because sometimes with quilt designs, the stitches either get too small or they're too large and they just don't look proportional to the design. So again, this is a separate feature, but it's awesome to have. So let's cut the thread here. Notice it didn't cut the thread because it wants to, yeah, it won't let me because it knows that you're doing a quilt design. So it's going to want you to cut it like this so that you can pull it under later. And we have this design perfectly quilted. So I think that looks pretty cool. Could have maybe used a little bit more batting on the back to give it a little more dimension, but I think that's really cool. And couldn't be easier. Absolutely is amazing. And like I said, there's borders in there. You could do a border in here. You can pull in all kinds of designs and make it your own. So anyhow, that's one of the great new features of the embroidery side of the 790 Pro. And as we learn with you, we'll come back to you with more videos and start highlighting more features that it does. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.